So you have to think of yourself in your third act as, okay, I've got a quarter of my life left. Let's say you're 70 like me, okay? You got a quarter of your life left. What are you going to do in that quarter that really will make you feel fulfilled and content and just that you've given back? Because Maya Angelou once said, if you're not giving, you're not living. So go, if you feel rotten, if you feel all about yourself, crappy, give. Go and volunteer at a shelter. Foster an animal, be it a dog, a cat. Every single solitary rescue organization is desperate for foster homes. Desperate. I mean, even here in our little Pimpot town, we have a wonderful rescue organization here that are just begging. Go and just help out, volunteer, go walk the dogs, or do something that is giving back. You know, you can, if you have your own dog and it's a real sweetie pie, you can go to local hospitals and visit senior citizens with a dog. You make their day, you know? Right. There's so many things you can do, and just think about.
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
Juliette Watt has been a soap opera writer for ABC Television, a theater writer-performer, and an ATP airline pilot and master flight instructor. She has won 2 Writers Guild Awards and has been nominated for a Daytime Emmy. She is also an animal rights advocate who worked for Best Friends Animal Society for almost a decade. And Juliette most recently added TEDx Fargo speaker to her extensive resume. Juliette's current mission is twofold: to help people who are struggling with the debilitating and potentially lethal symptoms of compassion fatigue, the emotional and physical burden created by caring for others in distress or neglecting your own life stress, and guiding people to create the true life of their dreams. In her own words, I want to help people who have lost themselves in who they've been for other people. Juliette, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
I loved your book, In Between the Magic. Few people could imagine themselves in one chapter of your young life, let alone the dozens you experienced before you're even 30. You're going, yes. You're going to need a volume 2 to cover your time as a pilot and a spokesperson for Best Friends. You know, I've been to their sanctuary in Kanab, and I have to say I was so taken specifically with the birds. And they have that bird sanctuary and how you have to be quiet. Yes. And the birds, some of them were wearing shirts because they'd self-mutilated. Yes. And I was so taken with it that I added those images into one of the books that I wrote entitled Cluck. Yeah. Because people just don't really understand the sensitivity, I think, about birds. But why don't we...
They don't understand, just quickly on that subject, Cheryl, they don't understand the terrible situation that is going on with parrots, especially because, like, for instance, a macaw, a really good macaw, will go for $10,000 to $15,000. So there's a terrible black market of smuggling these animals in from like South America and down there where they live, the Amazon, and they smuggle them in. They wrap them up and smuggle them in the most horrific way. And that's why they're so stressed, they self-mutilate. And Best Friends is brilliant. I mean, they have aviary vets that are extraordinary. So yes, it's quite a thing. And nobody really knows much about the smuggling.
It's just one more tragic story.
You know, yeah.
In your book, you did talk that as a young girl, you had a horse and that you were very involved with horses. So I thought we would start with that and talk about your life as a young person and how you've, evolved to where you are today.
Yes, my mother, unfortunately, as you probably heard from the TED Talk, was this governing force of in my life of, well, she drained my soul, basically. You know, my father died unexpectedly, and all of a sudden she's left with me and like didn't know what to do. She really wasn't a mother. But so I had to adapt to surviving and self-preservation very early at like 10 or 11 years old. And everything that happened to me sort of happened by chance. I really didn't cause any of it. It's just what I had to do. I had to go and work in the Playboy Club because they were coming to take us away and throw us out of our house because mother didn't pay the bills, because mother was useless with money. And this was back in the 60s, which was a very different time. You know, it was a much calmer time in one sense, but in the other sense, you had no credit cards. If you didn't have money in the bank, that was it. You were poor. You know, and in England, especially, bank managers and that could take your house, they could take whatever they wanted. And my mother was not, and never, when my father died when she was 40, she wasn't used to standing up for herself. You know what I mean? She'd been married or living at home. So, and he never let her do any business because he was Turkish. So that's the Muslim way. The women don't do anything. So I had to fend for myself pretty much. And it was okay. You know, I don't wish for anything else because it made me who I am today. But the compassion fatigue is what came out of that. And having done everything I did and having been so acutely on that top of survival and is mother okay? And what do I need to do to keep us going? And what do I need to do to pay the bills? Living in that state of heightened anxiety for years and years takes its toll on your body. And I was very young. So my mother died in 2014. And I thought, oh, good. I can breathe. And I did not know what was coming because she was gone and that was done. The depression came. The PTSD from having lived that life came. It just landed on me. And I didn't know what to do. I went to the bottom of the dark hole, bad dark hole, and I didn't know how to get out of it. You know, and thankfully, I found an amazing therapist who I've been with 5 years now, and we're still climbing out of the hole. So that's why I did that TED Talk, because compassion fatigue was originated from soldiers, and nobody realized that it hits us, regular people. And that was the real eye-opening aha moment, you know. Does that make
Well,
sense?
I can only imagine because as I have read your book and each chapter, I'm like, what? You're surviving on what? You know, and it was traumatizing, you know, through a voyeuristic way to read it. So, but you just soldiered on, you know. So on one hand, you know, bravo, because you took every opportunity and did something with it. But I can totally understand how decades of just moving through it, whatever, without any other support, just yourself to really count on, would absolutely take its toll. And, you know, I'm a big believer in therapy myself. I think it's, you know, we all have to learn. We all have our stories, right? We all have our journey. And what are we, well, the question becomes at some point, you know, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And that's why I loved your TED Talk, because you talk about that third act, you know, and how it's a greater time for more compassion, you know, for ourselves first, but then also hopefully as an expression towards animals.
Yes. Yes, they do take, and working at Best Friends showed us basically the worst of the worst, Cheryl, you know. I mean, the animals that came in, we had a thing. We didn't dwell on how bad they were when they came in. We would always say, okay, today is the first day of the rest of their life in peace, and we're going to heal them. And we never dwelt on how bad they were. And also working at Best Friends, we ended up being in New Orleans for the better part of a year, taking care of everything in Hurricane Katrina, which was another dramatic event that happened, and all the animals that were left behind. As you know, everybody couldn't take their animals with them. So Best Friends went in and we took care of oh, how many? We must have rescued, actually physically rescued about 6,000 animals, and because there was 250,000 displaced, and very few of them went back to their home, unfortunately. So we had to run around getting them into shelters that were adoption facilities, foster homes. It was, but Best Friends was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I mean, we went to work, and I was flying at that time. So I was able to fly animals all over the place and get them into different, foster care and that kind of thing. But back at the sanctuary, as you saw, when did you actually visit there? What year was it? So I know what it looked like.
It was before COVID, so it's a good 7 years ago.
Okay, had they modernized it by then?
I
Had it
believe they had.
it up? Okay, yeah. They every nickel that comes in, and quite a lot comes in, they put into the sanctuary, and then they start opening satellite offices all over the country. Take care of. There's one in LA, there's one in New York City, and Salt Lake City, and they're all over the place, and they do incredible work, absolutely incredible.
I,
So,
s- I know a little bit about them through, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we have an animal foundation here. And I know back in the day when I was working with dogs specifically,
right.
they were trying to adopt the Best Friends model. And basically it takes a certain amount of, funding in
Yeah.
order to be able to call yourself no kill.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, what an impressive organization. How did you tell us the story of how you found yourself with Best Friends?
As I said, 9/11 had happened, and it was turmoil back east. It really was. So my husband and I, Jason, my husband, we decided to go on holiday. And we went to Utah because we wanted to see all the national parks. And we'd heard about Best Friends. Nat Geo, long time ago, had done a little documentary on them, and they were very grassroots back then. We went there in 2003, and really they were still very, they were nothing like they are today. They're a corporation today, but they were really grassroots. So we went there and volunteered. And it was so bizarre because it was so different. I mean, both my husband and I have been in show business all our life. So to go there was such a contrast, and I thought, this is so amazing. You're out here in the middle of nowhere, and it was wonderful. And I was poop scooping at Dogtown, and I suddenly had this incredible feeling, we need to live here. We have to live here. That's it. And we adopted a dog unintentionally at that time, and came back to New Jersey. And I went on the computer, and we had seen a house as we were driving out we were going someplace where we passed a house on the highway. And I said, that's where we need to live. And when I got back to Jersey and I went on the computer, that house was for sale. Also, Best Friends had posted a job list, and one of the jobs was for broadcast, for doing video and stuff for them, which is exactly what my husband did. So I sent down to him because he was on his computer in the basement. I said, this is the house we're going to live in. This is the job you're going to do. And it was pretty funny because he came up the stairs yelling and screaming. And I said, it'll all be good. And it was fantastic. So when we got there, it was great. We had our dogs with us. I mean, at one point we had 7 dogs, but they all came to work with us. And everybody had their dogs at work, and it was great. And the good work that we did was very, very satisfying. Now, going forward, year after year after year, seeing what we saw, I remember in my 8th year there, I was burnt out. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the cruelty. I couldn't take anymore. I had reached the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I was starting to cry uncontrollably when animals came in, and I knew I was done. And you reach a very, very low burnout, and time to move. So we came to Colorado. My poor
Okay.
husband, bless his heart, he just follows. I'm like, we gotta go.
Yeah.
But it does. And Cheryl, if you, whatever involvement you have with dogs, they pass away or they're in such bad shape, it drains you. We've lost our animals, and every time I lose one, I'm a mess, a total mess. So that's how we got there.
Well, I certainly do understand that. And it's interesting that you're bringing up, fatigue and, you know, burnout,
Yeah,
because what we have going on as a society,
yeah, oh,
it's like where I have my little thimble here,
yeah,
and I'm draining the swamp, but it's a tsunami,
it
and
is.
it just doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And if,
I know.
depending on the day, you can feel like, is this is just more than I can deal with. Not that I would ever want to quit, but it's interesting
That's the
then.
thing.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I keep saying we're not having any more dogs, and we get more. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
and the compassion fatigue, that's what I was suffering from. That's what all caregivers of animals in that capacity, they suffer it. That's what I had, and I didn't know it at the time, but I spent every ounce of my being caring for these animals, as did everybody else. I certainly wasn't alone. Katrina was one of the most emotionally, I can't even put it into words. It was a draining, but you had to keep going on. So you had your adrenaline going the whole time as these trucks would come in every night with 300 dogs in them, or spiders or snakes or whatever people had kept for pets.
Hmm.
And by 8 years, I was done, and I didn't know what I had. It was awful.
You were on empty. And that's interesting. It just reminds me of your young life,
Yeah.
because, one, one warlike zone in front of the other, and you
Yeah.
just had to soldier on.
Yeah.
So, but I'm interested in your work on, filling one's tank. What do you recommend when you've hit bottom? Because we don't want to be done.
I think you have to first of all recognize that you're heading down there, because once you're at the bottom, it's like climbing out of a concrete bunker with fingernails. I mean, you have to recognize it's coming. And that is when you start to feel this emotional overload. When it comes to, it's different with animals. I found I couldn't handle it. I kept crying. I kept feeling devastated. And I realized I couldn't do this anymore. And even now, I'm not great. I mean, if I see, like, I'm really, if I see a dog tied up, I'm like, don't do it. You know what I mean? If I see a dog in the back of the truck, like we have out here in the West, we're the Wild West here, and they put their dogs in the back of the truck and they chain them to the toolbox, I freak out. I can't
Hmm.
handle it, and I'll start crying. That's where I am. I know that I have to really manage that and not put myself in a situation where I'm going to see anything that is going to make me cry, basically. When it comes to people, when the compassion fatigue with people, you start to feel so overloaded, you start to not care about yourself. Don't care how you look. I'm overweight. I don't wear makeup anymore. I can't. I have no time. You start gradually resenting the person you're taking care of, even if it's somebody you love very much. It can be
Hmm.
anybody, a child, a husband, or whatever. Then you feel guilty because you start not caring about them. You know what I mean? And it's a layer upon layer upon layer. And if you can recognize those two bottom layers of, okay, I look like crap. I'm looking in the mirror. I am neglecting me. I don't go out with my friends anymore. So go out with your friends. Find somebody to help you to come in for a day or an afternoon and get out, get away from it. You know, buy yourself something nice to wear. I know this sounds silly, but
No.
this is all so important because young women are going through this, middle-aged women are going through this. There are, I think, what did I say? There were thousands and thousands of people taking care of a loved one and have given up their whole life to take care of that person. I have a dear friend who's got a father who is 89 with dementia, Alzheimer's, all of the above. And the energy she spends in cleaning up after him and doing this and doing that, and he starts yelling at her for no reason. It's really hard. We do not have the tools for this. We don't have the tools for excessive grief and we don't have the tools for compassion fatigue. We're not supposed to be here as a nurse. We're not a nurse. I couldn't inject somebody, but if I had to, I'd have to. Do you know what I'm saying? That is a strain. That is something like, I'm not a medical person. I don't know how to do this, but I have to because I can't afford a nurse to come in. I can't afford somebody to come in. And it's like this. It doesn't go away. It really doesn't. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to go, listen, I've got to put them second, even if it's a child. And I know, gosh, everybody's going to be screaming. I know that sounds terrible, but you've got to. You've got to put them second. And not in a bad way, but you've got to put yourself first. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like what they say when you're getting on a plane. You know, if the mask comes down, put the mask on first. And when you're able to breathe, then you're in the position to help someone else.
That's it.
You
That's
know?
the analogy in one sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But people don't do it. They don't. They are reticent to make the first move. I mean, I've had a lot of clients, because I do coaching on this, saying, oh, well, I can't do that. Why not? Well, because they might die. Okay. You're not going to abandon them completely. You're going out for the afternoon. If they pass away in the afternoon, they were going to pass away anyway, with you sitting there. It's hard, you know. It's hard. It's really hard when you have something like that. And I think with humans, it's much harder. You can manage yourself better with animals because you go, okay, I will do everything I can for this animal. The worst thing is having to say, okay, I have to euthanize today. That's the worst thing. When you look at your little dog or your horse and you go, they're done. Now, if I keep them going, it's just for me. I can't do that. I have to stop me and I have to think, what are they going through? What is their quality of life, you know? And we are blessed. We can play God with animals. We can put them out of their misery. We don't have to plug them up with tubes and everything and wait for them to die. It's awful. Does that make sense?
It makes sense there are so many points that you've made, you know, one being because I'm very aware that we're a small group and that we need more of us. And if there's going to be more of us, we have to find a way to enlist. Yeah. And the question is, you know, do we do it with, you know, making people uncomfortable? That moves some people. Or do we just do this little invitation? Does that work? Is any of it working? We need more people. We need more support because I think what I heard you say is, you know, when you're working at a sanctuary, which is, you know, they're just vital. Yeah. They're vital for the animals, of course. They're vital for humans because we have learned how to shut off our emotions, it seems.
We have.
And if we were able to feel those emotions and do something with it and let it move through us, we might be able to repair.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing are that there's so many rich points that you've made about where we need to continue to do the work, you know. Yes. And as you said, it's, you know, it's taking care of ourselves, learning to take care of ourselves. And then in some way, hopefully, maybe not in the same way, we get back in the game, you know.
Yes. And I think also just touching on another thing that happens, like, for instance, with myself in those early years, I did not know, but I was experiencing severe trauma, not from being in Beirut, not from being in any wars, from my mother. And it was the trauma of having from 10 years old to be like, my mother looked at me and I was 10 years old and she said, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know, you know, and the trauma started then. And this is what I've learned in therapy. Then there's the grief of losing your animals, like what my mother did to my horse and my dog and all of those things, right? So grief you move through and it never goes away. It's triggered very easily, but it's grief, which is a natural feeling. Trauma is induced and trauma never goes away, ever. You can be triggered by anything. You have to understand the difference between the two and then understand if you have trauma, you absolutely need to get help. You cannot do it alone. And we live in a country, even though we're a bit skewy right now, we do live in a country where there are fantastic people out there to help you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
and find them and find the one that works for you, because not everybody works for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
yeah, and get help. Don't go, well, I can manage this on my own and start taking pills. Don't do that. You
No,
know,
no.
um, I didn't know what to do, and so it's grief for me is my biggest challenge. The trauma I understand now, and I understand how to work through it. You know, for instance, if I get that depression, I go with my horses, and they're extraordinary animals to be with if you want peace, if you want to feel serenity. Just stand with a horse anywhere, you know, and you'll feel it from them, because they're unlike a dog. They're a prey animal, so they're not completely trusting that you're not going to do something that may scare them a little bit, and we all have to run. They feel you. They feel your emotions. They feel everything. And if you stand with them and you breathe, it sounds silly, sounds a bit woo-woo. You can get that peace and serenity that comes off of them, because that's all they want. They want to feel safe and they want peace, period. They don't want anything, well, and food, you know? But
Yes.
yeah, and grief is a beast. It's a beast. It does not go away. You have to understand when it comes up, when you're triggered, cry, have a good cry, very healthy, because it comes out. Do not push it in. I swear to God, Cheryl, I firmly believe that people get ill, get sick from pressing down and pushing down and suppressing anger, grief, every feeling. You know that. You know people
I
like
do.
they completely shut down because they just can't handle it. You know, and then they start drinking too much, and then they start doing pills to shut it. And it's all anesthesia. It's all just to shut it down, to shut you down. That's why alcoholics live, bless their hearts. They
Hmm.
just want it, they want to stop feeling. And one of the hardest things to do is feel everything. Go through it, have a good cry, punch a bag, go to the gym, whatever. I ride my horse. That's what I do. I get on the horse. If I'm feeling really crappy, go down, ride my horse.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
Excellent. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Juliette Watt, and this is Better Life for Animals. Juliette, many people associate later life with slowing down, but you advocate for using this time to make a difference. So how can retirees or those in their third act get involved in animal advocacy?
Oh gosh. I mean, first of all, don't think of yourself as old. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
your brain is not registering that age. Your brain is not saying, okay, you're old, and from the neck down, gravity has taken over and everything's going to fall apart. I am a little crazy. I act as if I'm 30. Now I've had 2 new hips. I've had a new knee. You know, my left shoulder hurts like hell, but I keep moving and I keep doing. So you have to think of yourself in your third act as, okay, I've got a quarter of my life left. Let's say you're 70 like me, okay? You got a quarter of your life left. What are you going to do in that quarter that really will make you feel fulfilled and content and just that you've given back? Because Maya Angelou once said, if you're not giving, you're not living. So go, if you feel rotten, if you feel all about yourself, crappy, give. Go and volunteer at a shelter. Foster an animal, be it a dog, a cat, every single solitary rescue organization is desperate for foster homes. Desperate. I mean, even here in our little Pimpot town, we have a wonderful rescue organization here that are just begging. Go and just help out, volunteer, go walk the dogs, or do something that is giving back. You know, you can, if you have your own dog and it's a real sweetie pie, you can go to local hospitals and visit senior citizens with a dog. You make their day, you know?
Right.
There's so many things you can do. And just think about, where can I give? Where can I give? Get out of myself, get out of my own head, and go and give back. Because I've got a quarter life left, and then I'm going to die. And a lot of people don't even think about that, you know? But you are. You're going to die. So what can you do? I mean, it's right.
Right.
And once I sort of really accepted that, well, I'm going to die, then a lot of things kind of went away. Like, I don't care what people think of me. You know, it's not so important that everybody thinks I'm fabulous. I don't care anymore. What I do care about is, what do I do for the next quarter? How can I give back? How can I bring peace and joy and serenity to something else other than me? And it could be humans. For me, it's animals. All right.
Absolutely.
Humans, I find a little disappointing lately.
Yeah. Well, speaking about that, you know, I really do think that this is something that young people need to take on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always looking for ways to encourage like intergenerational collaboration, you know, between younger and older people. You know,
Yes.
what have we got to give that would motivate younger people? I've heard so many great stories about, you know, volunteering at sanctuaries and what have you. And, you know, that we could be passing something on without, you know, maybe
Yes.
we don't have all, you know, we're not walking like we were, but
Yes.
they are.
Yes.
So
Yes.
together, you know, there's a collaboration there. Do you ever see any good examples of that?
Oh, golly. You know, yes, sometimes. I used to see it more when I worked at Best Friends. We used to have an extraordinary program there, which I really wish they had in other states. But Utah has a lot of these homes where families send their difficult children, to the point of children that have tried to kill their parents. The real gamut, okay? And they go into these homes for a certain length of time. It's a rehabilitation situation. And some of them are gangsters. I mean, these are 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. It's frightening. And the parents can't do anything more with them, and they send them there. And we had quite an extraordinary thing happen. They used to bring them in groups to the sanctuary to visit the animals. And it was when they went to see the dogs, they wanted to see the pit bulls only. All right. And
Interesting.
we did not support that. They saw them, but we showed them the other dogs too, the older dogs, just trying to get them out of themselves. But I had an experience I was a volunteer coordinator, so I would take them around, and we were down in Horses, and we had this one kid with us. He was like a little gangster kid, you know, yo, I'm tough. I tried to kill people, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, let's go pet a horse. He said, absolutely not. No, they're too big. I don't want to go near them. And I realized he was terrified, absolutely terrified. And we had a horse in particular that was wonderful with kids. You could have 4 kids all over him and he was fine. He was an older horse. And so I took him down there. I said, well, let's give it a go. And to cut a 45-minute long story short, I gave him a brush and I said, just brush his neck. And he started brushing. I said, how you doing? He said, I'm all right. I think I'm all right. Is he going to bite me? I said, no. Is he going to kick me? No. And I walked away for a little while. I always get emotional on this. When I came back about 20 minutes later, I saw an 11-year-old child.
Oh,
I saw an 11-year-old child who looked at me and went, oh, I love him. I mean, from the yo gangster to this kid looking at me going, I love him. Voice had changed, body had changed, and I thought, Now then, there is a lot of horse therapeutic places where you can take your kids and see what a horse can do you know. Take your kid with you to the shelter and let's go walk the dogs together. It's very hard today, Cheryl, because we've got the phone, haven't we? We've got devices. It's more important to stare at your texts all day long than it is to do anything. It's very, very difficult. And I have great sympathy for parents today. I don't know how they're doing it. I really don't. It's very, very difficult. But I know some that go, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going to go learn how to do this. And we're going to go and to the Humane Society and we're going to go walk some dogs. And the kid's like, no, well, and walking with the phone. No, the phone stays in the car. You got to be firm. And
Yeah.
I don't wish to be judgy, but I think there's a firmness that is missing with parents today. Just my opinion of what I've seen. My mother wasn't my friend. She was my mother. I didn't want a friend. I had friends, and now I think today that line is a little blurred. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's difficult, but not impossible.
Diatribe there.
No, I hear you. There are challenges, but there are also opportunities. And we have these shelters, like you said, and we have these sanctuaries that, as you said, are, in desperate need of help.
Yes.
And I think of young help.
Oh, yes, with energy yes. And I think Best Friends is a fabulous example to go and visit with them like you did. You see all the stuff that you can do. And there are other sanctuaries in the country. There are other places that you can go and do exactly the same thing. I mean, there's a wild horse sanctuary, I think in Wyoming, where you can do stuff, and there's wildlife sanctuaries, where they have the elephants and the tigers. I mean, there's so many places that you can go like on vacation and then do that. In Florida, they have a wildlife and a wild bird sanctuary there. You can go help out there. If you go online and you look for animal sanctuaries, tons of stuff will come up all over the country. You don't have to schlep to Utah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They have them on the East Coast. They have them in the Midwest, everywhere. Because there's 9 million animals in rescue? 9 million? Dumped, okay? And there's plenty to do out there.
So this has just been a fabulous conversation. There's just so much to think about here, Juliette.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us, what are you working on? What is your big push right now?
I show my horse every summer.
Okay.
And I do it because it gives me such joy. It gives my horse something to do, a job. All horses love to have a job. Gives me a job. And it gives me a sense of I have to develop a routine every day, go and work my horse, get him ready, go to the show. It sounds kind of vapid, but it's a focus on me. I want him to be the best he can possibly be. I've got 2 of them, actually. And so that's what I'm focusing on because I worked for 42 years, for other people.
Yes.
And I wrote that book, which took 3.5 years of my soul. So now I'm just focusing on the animals that I have and really trying to get the full benefit of them, especially the horses, and it just peace. It gives me peace. It gives me serenity. I don't know what I'd do without them, quite frankly. So I don't really have a push. As I said, I'm 74 and I'm just doing as much as I can for something else other than me, but it's benefiting me tremendously, It stops me complaining, even though I do, about the state of the country. Don't we all? At what point, I don't know, but sometimes it's good to have a vent. Like, what is happening? So, right? I got to tell you, Cheryl, I watch the news sometimes. It's like I'm watching a really bad movie because I'm like, what is happening now? Right? Yeah. So rather than fixating on that, I turn my attention to something natural, and it's, sometimes I do get like wound up in it and I start venting, but
that's human. That's human.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're going to be busy again, whether you like it or not, because I think your book is going to be a bestseller. So I can
Well,
see it out there. I
I
can
mean,
see
that
you
would
on the
be
circuit.
lovely. Yes, that would be lovely. We haven't had anything yet. We've sold a few, but if I was famous, it would be different.
Well, I think you are famous.
Oh,
You certainly did work that anybody would be proud of and beyond. I
thank
mean,
you.
your story is an incredible one, and I'm such an admirer.
Oh, Cheryl, you're so sweet. Well, I admire you guys because doing these podcasts is not easy, and I really do admire you for doing it because it's important that we get this is a wonderful way of getting this out. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I can't go on Jimmy Kimmel, right? But this is but this is a really, really good way because I don't know how many viewers and stuff that you have, but anybody, doesn't matter how many you have, anybody hearing this that can say, ooh, wait a second, I felt like that. Ooh, you know what I
Yes.
mean? That's all I
Yes.
ask for. That's all I ask for. Or I never thought of it that way. That's
Right.
another, to change someone's state, to change the state of whatever they're in to something else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Really grateful.
Yes, you have given us a lot of food for thought and a lot of inspiration, and I
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anything you want to say before we close? And be sure and tell us how we can find you.
So my book is In Between the Magic. It's available on Amazon. My website is Juliette Watt, in one word, .com. And pretty much everything's on the website. And I would like to be able, and I'm sure I can put this on the website, when it comes out so that people can hear this. But
Absolutely.
everything is there. Pretty much everything I've done, the podcasts that I've done, the TED Talk is there. So everything you need and how to get a hold of me for coaching or for anything like that, that's all on there too. And I have, affirmations from folk just to let you know.
Absolutely. Okay, that sounds great. Everybody, you need to check Juliette's book out, and I'm so happy to have met you, and I'm sure that our paths will cross again.
I hope so. That would be
Yes,
lovely.
absolutely. So this has been Better Life for Animals, and if you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe so that we can continue to create a better life for animals.
Joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.